Mullein is a great tincture to prepare now in advance of autumn and winter. It takes about 8 weeks to make, so if you start it now, you'll have it ready in time for September, October timeframe. If you're lucky enough to have it growing around you, it should be ready to forage right about now. And if you're like me and you don't have mullein growing near you, you can easily find it online. Mullein is full of medicinal compounds that can help your body fight off colds. It's good for clearing chesty coughs, and the plant has antibacterial and antiviral properties, so it's a great one to start to have for winter. So I began by adding the dried mullein to a glass jar. If you're using fresh mullein, I would recommend harvesting it, chopping it up into small pieces, and letting it dry. Mullein has a lot of water in it, and so it can make your tincture spoil more quickly if you use the fresh plant. You can also use an alcohol that's a really high amount of alcohol, so over 80 proof, and that can also help offset the water content in your tincture. But if you're using dried like me, I'm adding enough mullein to fill my glass jar about a third of the way full, and then I'm covering it with alcohol. I'm using just a really inexpensive, unflavored vodka to do this that is 80 proof. After you cover the herbs with alcohol, you'll notice that, especially when you're using dried herbs, they tend to float to the top, and you can use a spoon or whatever to push them down below the alcohol. You want to help them start to absorb the alcohol and get them below the alcohol. When you make tinctures, the main thing to pay attention to is that your plant material is submerged completely in alcohol, and this will prevent the plant material from spoiling and allow the alcohol to extract all the medicinal benefits from the plants. You can top up the alcohol, like after a day of letting it sit, to make sure that whatever was absorbed by the plant material is replenished. So after everything is covered in alcohol, add a lid to your jar and shake it so everything has a chance to be covered in alcohol, and then label it so you know what it is, because if you're like me and you really get into tinctures, you'll have a lot on the go at the same time and you'll forget what's what. And then leave it to sit in a cool, dark place like a pantry or a cupboard for about 8 weeks. Now, I'm going to strain this tincture off more quickly just to show you the process, but after I make this video, I will put everything back in my glass jar and let this sit for the full 8 weeks. So when you're straining off the mullein tincture, mullein leaves have these fine little hairs on them, and you want to try to strain those off so they're not in your tincture. I do this usually by using cheesecloth or a coffee filter to strain off my tincture and do multiple strains. Coffee filters can take a long time to get the liquid through, but they do give the best strain. But you can also use like 2 layers of cheesecloth and do, 2 strains of the liquid, and that should take care of those little hairs. If you're interested in learning other tinctures that are great to make during the summer, I've made a guide that has 6 really simple recipes that you can try. Even though tincture making is really simple, it's a simple process, I found it really confusing and I had lots of questions when I first got started. And so I've kind of written the guide to help you get into making these sorts of herbal medicines and help you realize it's not really as complicated as you might think it is. And I'll link that guide in the description below. Then use a funnel to bottle your tincture. If you don't have these amber glass bottles on hand, I like them because it has that dropper in it, so it's an easy way to get the dosage of the tincture. But if you don't have them on hand and you don't want to buy them, you can just use a glass jar that you have and keep it in there. There was someone who recommended in my last video where I showed you how to make calendula tincture to use a amber mason jar to store your tinctures, which is a great idea. It avoids having to use a funnel to bottle all your tinctures, and you can just keep them in a wide mouth amber glass mason jar. So after you bottle your tincture, you can label it and date it again so you know what it is. I like to use mullein tincture preventatively and also when I have a cold. So I, in the colder months, tend to use 1 dropper full a few times a day, and that has helped me in the past. Like most alcohol-based tinctures, this tincture will last a long time if it's stored out of direct sunlight and you've strained off the plant material. I usually say it'll last 1 to 2 years, but alcohol is a very good preservative. I personally just take this tincture right under my tongue. It offers the quickest absorption if you do it that way, but you can also dilute the flavor in a cup of tea. You could add it to your favorite herbal tea for added nutrients, or you could add the dosage to a spoonful of honey to make the flavor more palatable. And if you're interested in getting regular tincture recipes and tincture tips straight to your inbox, make sure to sign up for my newsletter. I send 1 email a week and would love to connect with you over on the newsletter or on social media. I hope you make this tincture. I hope you give it a try. Let me know in the comments if you do, and I will speak to you in the next video.